Hey there, and welcome to today. I am very excited to, well, introduce but present my friend. I'm happy to say now, Carlos. So, of Motivated Minds. So, Carlos,
Hey,
how are you
hey,
doing?
doing good. Good to be
Fantastic.
here. I
Yeah.
I am all I'm a mess right now. I'm in my home office and I just took some time out. Isn't that crazy? I mean, this worked out perfectly. I took some time off today so I could be here with you. Total privilege to be hanging with you, Ops. Total
I am
privilege. This is
so
amazing.
thankful. This
Yep.
is, yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you
So,
for inviting me. Thank you
oh,
for inviting me here. This is so fun. A midday for me. It's 3 o'clock. I'm here in
yep,
Los Angeles, so it's
yep.
it's early. But thanks for having me, Ops.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thanks for
Yeah.
agreeing and being here. And
Oh, come on.
that is
Totally.
awesome. Yeah, it's
Yep.
like, what do you call it? Oh, it's 6 o'clock here over in
Yep.
Atlanta, Peachtree City. But I'm like the golf cart community. Anyways,
Yep.
so today we're gonna just talk about lots of stuff. But
Yep.
first, I would say, how about can you just introduce yourself to everybody? So,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. I see some people in here that we know. I see, Caleb
Oh,
oh, I love stressed out, stress free. I haven't seen you in a bit. Good to see you.
well, yeah,
Sly's
we'll see.
here. I see,
Hey,
right?
Lutz.
People are in there.
Yeah,
Um,
and then, yeah,
well, I'll tell you what, Obs, years ago, I had kind of an interesting journey to where I'm at today because I was in the corporate world, um, many years ago, and I just was never really satisfied. I didn't feel really fulfilled in my life, and I figured that out fairly early, thank goodness, because sometimes we wait too long to figure out we need to make a move, and I did that fairly early and made a transition. I think some of us are, uh, at least, some of us are called into different, works of, just different vocations. And for me, I think it had a lot to do with, uh, this is going to be really kind of weird, but some of you will probably understand what I'm talking about. I grew up with some in a really dysfunctional family system. All of us have some degree of dysfunction in our families, right? But what I got out of my family was this. Uh, I grew up very what we call enmeshed, or kind of codependent with some of my family, especially with my mom. Why am I sharing that with you? Well, because that has something to do with why I moved into this career, why I moved into this years ago. So here's an interesting thing. What do I mean by enmeshed? Well, I kind of became my mom's rescuer. Early on in my life, I tried to rescue her, tried to help her, I tried to save her, um, and I couldn't. I was That wasn't my job, right? It wasn't my job to do that with her, but nevertheless, it doesn't stop a child from trying, and so I grew up with that kind of built into me. Just to I had this desire, this innate desire to rescue, to help, to save. And so that has a very unhealthy side to it, okay? So the unhealthy side is maybe what we would call codependency, right? It's like a desperate need to save and rescue and fix. Well, I had to get through some stuff. I had to work through some stuff in order to take that narrative and filter it to something really good.
yeah,
So if you were to see every one of my romantic relationships throughout my life, they were disastrous, except, thank goodness, my wife. But all of the others were just disastrous. And it was all because I had this desperate need to fix, to save, to rescue, right? Very codependent. And so I decided at some point to do my own personal work ops. I decided I need some help. I need some help.
yeah,
And out of desperation, I reached out to a therapist that I knew, and we began to do that work. And my journey of kind of radical healing began. And it wasn't only obviously the therapist, but that helped me start the journey. And, a few years later, as I began to see all these things about myself, learn all these things about myself, connect all these things about why I am the way I am and why I do what I do and why I don't do what I want to do. I mean, all these crazy things. I began to find a real joy in the process. And as I did that, I began to think, other people began to even share with me, have you ever considered like moving another direction? And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, never really thought of that. But I began to listen to some of that in my life, and I began to slowly start to really consider it.
Yeah.
And then a few years into my marriage, my wife was finally the one who said, yeah, I think you need to do that. And this is what she said one day. So I'm doing some volunteer recovery work. Okay. I
Yeah.
was a lay person doing volunteer recovery work. And I would come home from doing that recovery work. And my wife would always say this: you come home from that work so much more joyful than you do from your job.
Yeah.
And so I said, I guess that means I need to start thinking seriously about moving ahead. So I did. I decided to, crazy long story, but in short, we made a big decision that I would leave this job. It was really hard for me to leave. It was scary.
Yeah.
And then it was even scarier was going back to school and moving toward, this arena. I already had some, so I didn't have to go back for everything, but still it was scary going back and changing careers, completely changing careers, right?
Yeah.
And so, uh, yeah, and that's what happened. Eventually, I made that switch, made that move. My first line of work was working with adolescents. I did all my internship at an intense adolescent outpatient treatment center, and that was that was crazy. I don't know who was crazier, the kids or the parents, right? Because we're all kind of nutty,
Well, there's that. Yeah.
right? Yeah, are we crazier or our kids? I mean, we're all connected, right? So,
Oh, for sure.
I did that, and then I went into private practice about 12 years ago on my own. I was always working with somebody. I always kind of had partners, but then I went out on my own and started doing my own work. And that's what I'm doing today, working with individuals and couples primarily in crisis situations. So I'm not what we would call a talk therapist. So I'm not doing a lot of marriage management or that kind of stuff. People are coming to me or being referred to me because they're finding themselves in a desperate situation, right? Where there's a lot of
Yeah.
chaos going on
Yeah.
for a variety of reasons. And that's where I really enjoy. That's what I really enjoy, Obs. I
Yeah.
love it. I love what I do. I'm
Yeah.
blessed to be able to do what I do. Sometimes I walk out of my office and I literally will walk down my stairs and go, I think this a dream or what?
Yep.
It's a gift. It really is a gift. And it's not easy. It's hard because you get connected to people. You're seeing people in their worst ways, in their
Yeah.
most desperate ways, in their most hurtful ways, in their most confused ways, in most angry ways, and you're working with them there. And it's hard because you care,
Yeah.
and it's also really hard when they aren't willing to do the work that's needed to change,
Yes.
right? And so a lot of the work is designed around your title. A lot of the work is around how can we interject not interject, actually. It's like, how can we help you create a pathway towards hopefulness? Because I can't interject. I can't force feed somebody to feel hopeful,
That is true. Yes.
right? I can't, even though that hasn't stopped me from trying
Yeah.
in,
Go for it.
before. That's what I would always try to do, but
Yeah.
I can't do that. Nobody can force feed me to feel hopeful right now, to believe in something that I literally don't believe in right now. I may feel alone right now. Nobody can like has a magic wand to say, zap, you're not alone. You can't
Yeah.
do that. It's you have to meet people where they're at.
Yes.
And sometimes that's a scary place. That's a scary place to be, but I'm
And by
grateful
the
to be able
way,
to do that.
Oh, well, that's good.
Go
I
ahead.
ripped
Go ahead.
the title from you, so it's your title ish, you know.
Ah.
So, hey,
Yep.
thanks. But,
Yeah.
how do we say? I totally agree because I'm like,
Yeah.
yes. I mean,
I have to say something before you talk any further. I have to say this. When you asked me to do this with you, I literally was very happy about it, but I felt really privileged, and I meant that because, and we, and at some point we can do this again and switch because you have a story that I know a little about
yeah.
that, and you said, Carlos, I think people need to hear more about what you have to say. And I just thought no one can reflect, I don't think, in our circles, no one can reflect hope greater than you, Obs, really. We
Thank
said about this a minute when we were just talking, and that is,
you.
you know, you don't just talk hope.
Yeah.
You're living hope. You are a living hope. And people like you who are overcomers. I put you in that category. You are an overcomer.
Yeah.
Not everybody's an overcomer. A lot of people in your situation who've experienced challenges, Mount Everest challenges in their life, that like you, a lot of people, they go the other direction.
Yeah.
They're not able to push through. They don't have enough hope in their life to push through. And that's kind of what our conversation was about. And I thought, wait a minute, I should be interviewing you. You shouldn't be interviewing me.
No way. I'm like, no, this is it. Well, of
Yeah, this
course,
is cool.
I found, yeah, it's incredible because I'm like, well, I'll talk real fast and then let you
Yep.
talk some more, but
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
there's been so many people with so many things like, oh, you're so lucky. Oh, you're this. Oh, you're that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
thanks. That doesn't help
Yeah.
me each morning get out of bed. That doesn't
Mm,
help me do therapy. That doesn't help me do these things. But I'm like,
yeah.
just the way you've expressed so many times that I would like,
Mm,
other people to
mhm.
hear is
Yeah.
hope, you know,
Yeah.
is that thing. So, and just
Yeah.
like you, I also changed careers later in life.
Mm,
If you, and oh, hey, there's, we have
yep.
your wife. Yep.
Yeah, you knew that, huh? Yeah, she's cool. She's plugging in. Cool.
Yep.
All right.
Fantastic. So, but yeah, I changed later in life and I became a software engineer and went out to San
Yep.
Francisco. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Then a year and a
Yeah.
half later, bam. So
Wow.
that's when I
Yeah.
had my accident. But
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk about hope though. So,
Right. Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that for a little bit. I'm just curious, because I know that we have this in common. We do have hope that has helped us overcome. Um, I have, I don't have the same exact experience that you do, right? We haven't lived each other's experience, but here's what's so interesting.
yes.
I know that we have a ton in common
Yep.
because people who are overcomers, they're kind of using the same strategies, the same stuff in here is going on to overcome tragedy, to overcome loss, to overcome, you know, uh, just tragedy in our life. If we're going to overcome, it's the kind of the same formula for everybody,
Yeah.
and that's hope. There has to be something that we are hopeful in. Not, I'm
Yes.
not talking about false hope here.
Yeah.
False hope is you wouldn't be where you're at right now if you were relying on false hope. There's just no way.
That is true.
Okay. I mean, that lasts for a moment and
Yeah.
then it falls apart, and then we try to do it again and we get in that cycle. What real hope and living in hopefulness is, it does take action. there's action involved in living in hopefulness,
Correct. Yes.
right? And I will tell you that most of my life, just little disclosure here, most of my life, because of the dysfunctional system that I came out of, I relied on externals to give me hope. I really did. I mean, early on in my life, I'm as materialistic as you could possibly believe because and I was restless because all these things that I had to get brought me hope for a moment,
Right.
but they never lasted. They never lasted. I grew up with this gaping hole, that I was trying to fill with stuff to make me to bring me hope, to bring me joy. And it just didn't work. It was never rooted or grounded in something real,
Yes. Yes.
and that's the thing. It wasn't something internal. It was something external.
Yep. Yeah.
And it was always that stuff. Man, I mean, as I'm talking about this, I'm thinking of, back then, 30 years ago, of just the insane, uh, I want to say restlessness that I was living in because I was relying and depending, searching for things again to bring that hope, but they always let me down. That's the problem.
Yes.
Always let me down.
Yep.
Okay, here's a really interesting thing to think of. And some people who have partners like you do, OBS, those of us who have partners who can probably understand this. What happens when we depend too much or we rely too much on our partner?
It's not good.
Not good.
No.
Wait, but OBS, what if we're soulmates? Aren't soulmates supposed to always be, aren't we always supposed to be in harmony together? I mean, we're soulmates,
Soulmates could be, but there should be growing, right? All the time. And
Yeah.
growing is kind of painful sometimes.
It's right.
Correct.
It kind of is, huh?
Yep, definitely. I'm like, oh.
And your partner, just like mine, and I do this, to her, is I really challenge her to grow. I mean, there's no question.
So helpful, huh?
Exactly. See, I'm helping you. I should tell her that next time when she gets
Yep.
pissed at me. Hey,
Yep.
Ob said I'm helping you.
Yep.
Come on, I'm helping you right now. This is
Wait
good.
on me, huh? Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what right. I was to say that's what couples do when they leave my office. A lot of times it's Carlos said that. Carlos said it is, and they use me that way. I was like, no, keep me out of your fights. Keep me out of your fights. Keep me out of your disagreements.
I was like, dang it,
But
I was gonna say, Carlos said it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, I'll turn it back around.
That is so interesting though, because that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is in my relationships, what I would try to do is I would try to find hope in my partners.
Correct. Yeah.
And I depended on them. I relied on them to give that to me. So
Yes.
let me just tell you how powerful hope is right now. And you know what? You may, or people in our chat may think this is really weird or dumb or silly or bizarre, but I'm going to share it anyway, because I think this really describes what hope can do, like how powerful it really is. But there was a relationship. I was probably in my early 20s, and I had this relationship with this gal. And, every one of my relationships, OBS, were always, I'm going to marry this girl. I'm going to marry this person. I'm going to, I mean, that's what they always were, right? So I had a serious attachment issue. And so this gal, she was the one. And so dating her for a while, and she broke up with me. And it wasn't just any breakup. Okay. Some of you might be able to relate to this. Some of you who can't probably think this is really weird, but I was so attached that it felt like death. It was painful.
Yeah.
It felt like abandonment. And if anybody has experienced abandonment in their childhood knows that that's a very deep wound when it gets triggered. So I literally felt these familiar feelings coming up of abandonment. And so it was so painful. And this is what I remember. She broke up with me, and I called her, and we somehow met, we talked, and we decided that we would. She called me up a couple mornings later, and she felt a little bit more, hopeful that maybe we could try to make this work.
Yeah.
And that was like a powerful, the most powerful concoction you can put together to shoot in your veins for someone like me,
Yeah.
because that was like pure hope, like, pure uncut hope
Yep.
is
Yep.
what this was.
Yeah.
And exactly. And so I snorted that hope so fast.
Yep.
It was so good.
Yep.
And that day, later that morning, I went on a ride with some of my buddies because I was an avid mountain biker at the time. And so we had a group ride here in some mountains here in LA. And this group ride was going to be pretty intense. It was going to be a huge training ride for something we were going to do. And I wasn't the strongest person in this group. There were a couple of the guys who were really strong. I showed up. Remember, I just snorted lines of hope. Okay.
Yep. Many
And so
lines.
I was hopped up on
Yep.
hope. Even though it was coming from an external source, it doesn't invalidate. I was feeling this, right? So there was this rush that I was in. So we got on our bikes, we started up our road, and it was a single track, very technical, but really steep, a lot of switchbacks. Obs. I started off the ride, never looked back. And I've never repeated this. I've never been able to replicate this ever. And everybody thought they thought maybe I was on drugs, because when I left the pack.
Yeah.
And I kept going, and I never looked back. I remember being way up at this switchback and looking down and just going, what is happening here? It's almost like an out of body experience.
Yeah.
I was looking back at everybody, and they were just like, what the heck? What happened to Carlos? Why is he like he's a madman right now? I
Yeah.
got to the top. I remember just never running out of wind. I remember just being that was how powerful that hope was that morning for me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like I felt super detached for a moment, super abandoned and detached, to feeling attached. And that just brought radical hope into me. And, it's kind of a weird way, but that's how powerful it can be sometimes. It can help us overcome. It certainly helped me get over that mountain like I've never been able to do before.
Yep.
And it's just something that's so weird. It stands out because I even have my friends today, when I talk to them sometimes, they'll tell that story.
Really?
And here's how they misinterpreted it for a lot of years. I never corrected them, but this is what they would always say when I'd hear them share that story. They would always say, remember that time when we went on that training ride and Carlos just went nuts? Man, he was so angry because his girlfriend broke up with him. He was so angry that he let out all of that energy when he was riding up the hill.
Yeah.
That's what they thought. They thought that it was anger that was fueling me.
Yeah. Wow.
If it was anger, it wouldn't have been as good.
Yeah.
And so at some point I said, you know what, you guys got this wrong. I don't know why you keep telling this story. Let me just tell you what actually happened.
Yeah.
It was hope. Hope was my rocket fuel. And they were like, what? What? Are you serious? Yeah, I never told you guys because I was too embarrassed. But I did it eventually. So they're just an example, right, of how powerful hope is.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a real thing. And I have my dysfunction that I've had to work through but Obs, for you, I'm curious, let's call them anchors of hope. Okay. We need to identify what our anchors are in order to stay grounded when that stuff comes, right? Because that we're going to still experience some. I mean, I haven't seen my last I don't know what you want to call it. I haven't seen my last tornado in my life.
Correct. Yeah.
I haven't. I know it's life, and I know more are coming. So I need to be anchored. So when they come, right, I'm not at the mercy of those 100-mile-an-hour winds, right? So, Obs. Okay, Obs, take it over. I got to let my dog out. Give me 1 sec.
All right. See what I can do here. So, as Carlos goes into that, so I just wanted to say, oh wait, hey there, Jerry. How are you doing? It's good to see you. And then Meg, yep, you were, well, no, sorry. Here we go, wild animal fights. Oops. There we go. Yep. If you have a tiger behind you, there we go, climb. There we go. See, definitely fear-driven theory is just right on. That is exactly what it is. So, yeah, I think what Carlos said just now
That's what
is
happens with live streams. Okay.
yes, is that's what happened with live streams. So, come there we are. So you just
All
never
right.
know what
That's
will
what happens when
happen.
you have a home office, you know? It's like your dogs, right? Your dog is in there
Huh?
somewhere and, you know, making
I know.
noise. And so
Actually, I got lucky-ish because they were
you did.
barking before we started. But I'm
That's
like,
right.
dude, I
That's
am
right.
so there. If somebody comes up to the door, forget it. Man, it's gonna be
So
nuts.
yeah, that was my FedEx guy right there. So, you know, more technology, Obs. Come on.
I was like,
More
hey,
technology.
some things are worth the interruption. I
That's
mean,
right.
just saying, I'm a tech
It's
head
not the
here,
new
so
Roadcaster. I'm saying it's not that. It's not that. It's not a new camera. I'm not doing any of that. I'm
oh,
chilling, man. Right?
so none of that yet.
Yeah. Not yet.
Guess.
Those new cannons. Those new cannons look pretty cool.
Oh boy, see, making her last time.
Yeah. So, Obs, tell me, connect with me a little bit about this as I'm sharing. But I'd love to hear, like, you know, what were the anchors of hope for you? You know, as you know, were faced with, you know, with having to rebuild, you know, and how what did you hold on to? What were some of the anchors or the anchor that you held on to that you think has been a big part of getting you here today?
Wow.
And
Well,
what?
I had not even thought about like preparing. I'm like, dude, except for software.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. But yes, anchors of hope. That is a good
Yeah.
question. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I am. Well, I think I'm very lucky,
Yeah.
fortunate because I met my wife actually
Right. Right.
after my accident, after I moved to
Mm.
Peachtree City. The whole reason I moved here is have over 100 miles paved trail, golf carts.
Wow.
So,
Oh, golf carts. Okay.
correct. So I'm not allowed to physically drive a regular vehicle, but 15-mile-per-hour golf cart, no problem.
Yeah,
So,
you don't want me on a golf cart. I'll create. I've actually had some problems on golf courts, so I'm not
really?
really good.
Oh boy.
So okay, but you went from West Coast to East Coast, kind of, right? Or
Well,
almost. I mean, you
correct.
went,
East,
yeah,
west, east, yes.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
born and raised in Florida in the Panhandle. So it's more like
Ah, okay.
LA, lower Alabama.
Ah,
So,
okay.
but yeah, I was recruited out of San Francisco. Awesome. I was like, this is my place. But
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
so then the
It's a
accidents.
wild town. You loved it, huh? You liked
I
it. You liked
I
San
did.
Francisco?
I
Yeah.
really, really did.
Man.
And so I was very
Wow.
fortunate for that.
Yeah.
But as far as after and
Mm.
everything, since what do you call it? So my accident was like a little over 6 years ago, and
Okay.
I'm trying to think. Acres of Hope. I am very fortunate to have met my
Yeah.
wife Paula
Yeah.
along the golf cart path. So I'm like,
Wow.
that's pretty
Wow.
cool, and
Yeah.
very thankful. It's like talk
Yeah.
about soulmates. I'm like, so what is this? I struck out in San Francisco. I'm like, and
Then
then
this
I
happened.
come to the South. What?
Right.
But I was
Right.
very thankful for that. But yes,
Yeah.
I'm thankful
Yeah.
she's been, of course, people say, my rock. But she's been
Mhm.
a very
Mhm.
strong support, we will say.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now I'm going back to those like anchors of hope. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah,
I
you think about I think about so many times I think I wanted to give up.
correct. Yeah.
So why don't we give up? You know, I mean, I can think of moments I gave up, but I mean
Yeah.
giving up, like giving up permanently, you know, giving up where,
Correct. Yeah.
you know, I have had clients that have given up on their life, and they're for years they've given up, and they're
Yeah.
just it's breaks my heart to see them living in such despair
Yeah.
consistently all the time, right?
Yeah.
I've had some days of despair, but something in me isn't willing to lay down. Something in me is not willing to concede, is not willing to tap out, and be at the mercy of my circumstances, be at the mercy of the, the situation that I'm in,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of that, is, for me, maybe an anchor. We all have different anchors, and
Yeah.
I think one of the anchors was for me was to experience fulfilling relationship.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's one of those anchors for me. It's like, well, I so want to. In fact, that's why eventually I started reaching out for help at some point, because
Yeah.
I'm crashing and burning here. I'm crashing and
Yeah.
burning, and it can't be all of my relationships. It can't be all of them. I
Yeah.
think there's got to be something here too, because
Yeah.
and when I began to take that seriously, I think the hope was there is hope, that started to grow, that that I can be in a functional relationship. And
Yes.
at some point, there was hopelessness that I will ever be that I will ever have that I'll ever experience that.
Yeah.
There was a hope that I also had that, this kind of goes a little deeper, but I didn't have a lot of hope that I could feel a sense of belonging, that I could feel loved and accepted. Because with my stuff growing up, I
Yeah.
really had this weird narrative that would get triggered sometimes, that I'm not loved and accepted.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, one of those anchors of hope was that I might find acceptance, that I might find a sense of belonging. And as I began to get help, I was thankful, because the person, this is crazy, my therapist at the time was, I was probably in my early 20s, and when I was meeting with him, he was probably 20 years older than me. And so he began to do this work with me, and I started to feel something from him.
Yeah.
I had no idea that this was going to happen, but the stuff I started feeling from him is I started feeling accepted.
Yeah.
I started feeling this sense of belonging. He didn't get sick of my stuff. He didn't get annoyed with me. He didn't get irritated by me. He didn't try to fix me and analyze me, advise me, and tell me, Carlos, you keep saying the same thing over and over again. I don't know. He didn't get hopeless about me. He didn't. I remember one day going in and even saying, I think I've shared this with you a lot of times. Aren't you sick of it
Yeah.
already? And that's what he was waiting for. He was waiting for something like that to come out, and that's what I do with clients now.
Yeah.
But he was waiting for that to come out so he can challenge that dysfunctional narrative.
Wow. Yeah, I was about to say, so what did he say? And then it was
That was
on
gold for
you.
him.
Yeah.
That was gold for him right there. He wanted to hear that, what I call stinking thinking, right? He wanted to
Correct.
hear
Yeah.
that come out so he can challenge it. And oh man, I will tell you, the journey of living in hopefulness,
Yeah.
it has taken a lot of work.
Mm.
It's taken a lot of work, and it hasn't just been sitting there and reading a really good book, or going to a really good conference, or going to a really good, motivational talk or whatever. Those are all great, really. And those are important aspects, contributors. It's it's really, though, this is the crazy thing, is so much of my hopefulness has come through deep and meaningful relationships.
Yes.
Right? That's a big one. So here's a guy. His name is, in fact, some of these people I think in our chat, including Doc. Doc likes this guy a lot, because Doc likes some of that brain stuff that I talk about sometimes.
Yeah.
There is a guy, Daniel Amen, Dr. Daniel Amen, and he does what we call brain scans. He calls them, SPEC scans, and he'll do that of the brain. And his work is primarily with people like struggling with injury, addiction, depression, anxiety. So he really works on, he does SPECT scans of those brain, excuse me, of those kinds of brains. And his research over the decades has been quite, wow. I mean, it's kind of blown our minds because we see it. We just needed the data to kind of show us, to reinforce it. And this is what he says. He shows all these scans of these brains before the addiction or while they're in the addiction or depression or anxiety, and he shows them 1 year later.
Really?
And what you see is this brain that looks really unhealthy. And you can always get on Dr. Daniel Amen's website and actually see these SPECT scans. When you see somebody's brain, an unhealthy brain, it looks crazy. It looks like it's on fire. I mean, it just looks really unhealthy.
Yeah.
It's supposed to look smooth. It's supposed to look smooth, you know, and that's what it looks like a year later after they've done the work.
Right. Yeah.
Sobriety, or if they're coming out of depression, they're doing the work to come out of depression. But it's action. It's all action.
Correct.
And he says a year later, these people are living in hope that they weren't living in before. There's a hope that they have today that they didn't have then.
Yes. Wow.
And when he came down to it, he did all the research, and this is the answer that he would get back the majority of the time from his clients who were finding healing. The most common answer was that it was the deep and meaningful relationships in their life that were creating the hope.
Yeah.
That was what it was. And he made it very clear. It's not friends. It's not just friends.
Correct. Yeah.
These were deep and meaningful friends. So, in fact, this is how he put it. They described it like, the person that I'm having coffee with, I feel is actually glad to be with me.
Man, that is huge.
That's a deep and meaningful friend. Somebody that you're with that you sense is glad to be with you.
Yes.
And that's the most important ingredient, he said, at building hopefulness.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
Wow.
You know, not something, not another thing or another gadget or another whatever it is. You know, it's like, I mean, I buy a camera, and it, man, that a dopamine rush right there with that camera,
Yep.
but then it's gone. It's gone. So
Yep. I'm like, yeah. That was what I was gonna jump on. I'm like, dude, it's the deep and meaningful relationship. I'm like,
yeah.
oh man, I can totally see that now. I'm like,
Right.
yep,
Right.
totally.
And it's part of what has helped you, obviously, you know, and
Yes.
I mean, it's a really huge part of, you know, getting us through those really dark days. So
Correct.
I don't know if you think about, like, let me see here. I might be able to do this, I think, right? Because I'm here. Okay. Can you see that? You
Oh
got my
yeah.
paper here?
Yeah, I
Okay.
can even
So
just
it's kind of like this. If you think about it, this is really a silly kind of way to,
there you
but I
go.
think we can get it. Okay. So there's this.
Yep.
So really, hopefulness has a lot to do with this forward uh, spiral,
Yep.
because sometimes we're on a bad day. We have our downs, we have our ups, we have our downs, we have our ups, we have our downs, we have our ups. The goal is not to avoid the ups, and is not to avoid these downs. You know, we can't. It's part of life. These downs are a part of our life.
Yeah.
And if we expect to only live up here on mountaintops for, you know, the entirety, we're going to be really disappointed, because we do have some of these downs. The difference is with hopefulness is, how do we move through these downs? And if we are, as we live in greater hope, this is what it looks like: ups and downs, up and downs, moving this way. When there's no hope, guess what? This is what it looks like, right?
Oh wow. Yeah. Yep.
Right? There's no hope. I'm always spiraling downward. I'm always spiraling downward. But this is really our goal. Moving through your ups and downs while moving that way, while moving forward,
Yes.
right? And I mean, it's a kind of a simple idea, but man, is that hard to do, though, right?
Yep.
That is that is not an easy because most of us in our down, a lot of us in our downs, we don't have enough hope.
Yes.
There are not enough anchors. There just isn't. So if you think about another, I think I did this. Did I do this the other night? Did I fill up the bucket? Did I do the bucket?
I
I
don't
might.
know.
I mean, again, just really silly kind of thing, but just a simple illustration of a bucket. Um, and this really is about, you know, I think I did, but this is the bucket of hope. And we have to be intentional about filling up this bucket. We have to be intentional. And there are things that I have to be consistently doing, friends, you know,
Yes.
sometimes it's things like music. I can't tell you how much my 80s and early 90s music brings me a lot of hope. It
Yep.
really does. When
Yeah.
I listen to it, it just fills me up.
Yeah.
I know people where they're like, "Oh, I love to dance." Dancing gives me a lot of hope when I do that. It makes me I feel connected to, you know, uh, my partner when I'm dancing.
Yeah.
But hope can be rooted. Uh, a lot of this, I would want to say, well, let me finish just with a couple others here.
Yep.
Things that can generate hope. They can also be things like, you know, intentional, self care. That's a really
Yes.
big one. I have a women's group. Oops, hang on. Yeah, I have a women's group, a therapy group that I do for the gals, and they have had to learn how to do more self care.
Yeah.
Many of them, especially if you live here in LA, right? It's really easy to not take care of yourself, right?
That
I
is
mean,
true.
San Francisco is the same thing. It's even
Yeah.
probably
I'm like
crazier up there.
anywhere, probably.
Anywhere, yeah. So we have really had to work hard on being intentional about self-care, and that is part of what's been generating more hope for them is when they're experiencing some, uh, when they're honoring themselves, when they're loving and honoring themselves with
Mm.
quiet, with solitude,
Yeah.
with fun.
Yes.
It's like there's so much there. I've had people like, I used to do this thing, many years ago, and I haven't done it in like 10 years. Well, why? Did it bring you a lot of joy? Yes, it did. It actually helped me feel more hopeful because I felt more motivated by doing it. I'm like, okay, reconnect with it. Do it,
Yeah.
go back. Let's do it. Bring that up again. Reconnect with those things. Um, and so a lot of what I can see with people like you and myself is we have enough anchors. There are enough anchors that are helping us stay in that moving in that forward spiral,
Correct.
you
Yep.
know,
Yep.
and right.
Yep. And that's Sly says here, the more
Yeah.
deep and meaningful the relationship is, the deeper the downward spiral is when they leave. Two sides to every
Yeah.
coin.
Yeah. It's painful. And here's an interesting thing maybe about that is uh deep and meaningful. That is an important relationship, but it wouldn't be so deep and meaningful if, for instance, all of my relationships I thought were deep and meaningful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But that's how they felt.
Correct. Yep.
But they weren't deep and meaningful. They were very attached.
Yes.
And they also, for me at least, they were very codependent. So they felt really like I trusted them with all my heart.
Yeah. Yep.
The deep and meaningful relationships also that I'm describing here are relationships with boundaries.
Correct. Yes.
Boundaries. Like I can share my deep stuff with you. I can be vulnerable with you because you're a safe person. Because we don't have a codependent relationship, I feel I deep and meaningful usually requires some form of boundaries in the relationship. Like, we're not codependent with each other. We're not too attached to each other. It's kind of like this. Let me give you an example with my wife, myself. When I started doing my work,
Yeah.
uh, I just went cold off of dating. I just said, forget it.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done with
Yeah.
that, because that is not where I'm going to find my hope.
Yeah.
I'm going to become too dependent on that for my hope, and I don't want that anymore. I want to find hope within. I want to connect with it here, so that when I do find a relationship, it's healthy.
Yes.
I can I can depend on them in a healthy way. I won't have an unhealthy dependency on them. I
Yes.
will have a healthy dependency on them. And so when I did that work, so a few years later, where I actually met my wife, and I will say this to everyone, she is the only person that I ever met that I didn't need.
Yeah.
I didn't need her. And that's what made it so healthy.
Yeah.
I didn't need her for hope. I was already living in hope. I was growing in hope. She was this, and this. Some of you, I hope you're not offended by what I'm going to say, but um, I was doing just fine, and what she was a compliment. She is the most powerful compliment in my life,
Yes. That is
and I am the
fantastic.
most valuable compliment to her journey,
Yes.
but I am not her source,
Yeah.
and she's not my source.
Mm.
It would be deeply painful, and it would be horrible, if she wasn't in my life. I also know, and she knows, that we don't breathe air in each other. We're not.
Yes.
She'll be okay. She was okay before me. She'd be okay without me.
Yeah.
That just kind of it our deep and meaningful relationship is really based on our healthy dependency on one another.
Yes. Correct.
Right. It hurts when she fails me,
Yep.
and I hurt her when I fail her,
Correct.
you know? I mean, that sucks. What happens if you
Yep.
come home one day? Maybe you do this with your partner, Bree, maybe
Yeah.
with your wife. Maybe you come home one day and you're in a great mood, or she's in a great mood, and one of you's in a bad mood.
Yeah.
And so maybe she comes home and she's like, she's sharing with you this stuff and this really exciting stuff and some really neat things, but you're like on the down. You're down here. You're at the downward part of that spiral.
Yep. Yep.
And she's expecting you to meet her there in her joy.
Right.
But you can't. You've just had a crappy day, and you can't match her intensity, her joy.
Correct. Yeah.
And so that could be really hard if she's depending on you to meet her there.
Yes. Yes.
If she has an unhealthy dependency on you to meet her there, that's going to be a hard moment. She's going to feel like you're failing her.
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
Right. What we need to do is be able to be flexible enough where I I was really hoping you were going to be able to join me in my, you know, in my joy that I'm experiencing today.
Yep.
I'm really bummed. It's like it kind of hurts that you're not able to meet me there. And
Yep.
also, this is interesting. And also, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I know you can't do that right now. And guess what? Sometimes we can do. We can go call somebody who's able to meet us there.
Yep.
you know, we haven't,
Absolutely.
because you're not
Oh,
my source. I have other people in my life that, can do that. No
speaking
one
of,
will ever be a substitute for my partner, like your partner. I mean, this is the
yes.
person, right? This is
Yep.
the person. I just know, though, that they can't meet me where I always want them to meet me. And I wish she could. And she
Yep.
wishes I could too.
Yep.
But
Yep.
sometimes we don't,
Yep.
we miss each other sometimes, I guess what I'm saying,
That's
but man,
correct.
I wanted to capitalize on that though, what Sly said, man, that could be, it's true. So whenever you're more vulnerable, Sly, maybe you mean this too. Like when you're more vulnerable with somebody, we are opening ourselves up, aren't we?
Yep.
It doesn't even if that relationship is healthy and it has boundaries, we're still opening ourselves up to somebody. It's kind of like this. when we start opening up to somebody, we're giving them the weapons of our destruction. And you know what we're doing? We're expecting them to build us up with that.
Correct. Yeah.
What happens when we feel like they're tearing us down with that information? That's painful. And it's kind of like what Sly is saying. That can throw us into a really deep spiral, right? Downward spiral, because I've given you this information that you could use against me. I've
Yes.
opened up to you, and relationships are so hard, sometimes.
They
They
are.
also are such a powerful source of hope, though. They can also be a powerful source of hope, though, right?
Correct. Yeah. And your
Hmm.
wife, actually, intentional self-care, very important.
Yes.
So
Oh man, I'm so
right
thankful
there.
for she's better at it than I am. So she is really consistent with her self-care. And I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe I think she needs that because of me. I think she really needs to be super intentional about it because of me.
Hey,
Okay.
we got our
Hey,
stuff. Yeah.
hey, my dysfunction is helping her grow. What can I say?
See,
It's all
there you
good.
go. Putting that out there. I can tell Paul that I learned my wife. Oh, Carlos
Yep,
said.
that's right.
Yep. Just go on it.
Oh man, it's tough, huh?
Fantastic. Well,
You
yeah,
know,
it definitely can be. I'm like,
Aubrey, um why do you keep going, Aubrey? What keeps you getting up in the morning? What keeps you moving forward? And you even said the other day when I asked you, you've got exercises that you do all the time.
yes.
What keeps you doing that?
Um, let's see. I was gonna say something funny, but no. Like, just
Your show. It's
I
all good.
know. I'm like about to say, yeah, my show, but you're asking. No. But for me, I always joke around. Oh, yeah, I'm a dork. I just want to change the world. But yeah, the
Wow.
anchor for me was all
Yeah.
right. I want to help. I want to help other
Wow.
people.
Wow.
Which,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I mean, many times I was like, yep, I could just sit on the couch, drink beer, watch TV, and be done.
Yes. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. But I'm like, no.
And that would be easier, right?
Correct. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Except I don't like beer, and after my accident, I can't do
Oh.
carbonation.
Okay.
Olfactory
Okay.
nerve, weird. But yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I
Yeah.
could, right? I
Yep.
mean,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm like,
I mean, you
no,
can check out in a lot of. I mean, we got Netflix, right?
correct. Yep,
We got gaming. We have Netflix. We have. I mean, we could avoid with so much.
that is correct.
We can
Yep.
avoid with so much, right? So this is interesting. Like, did you always feel that way? Did you always feel like even when you were a software engineer, was that in you, or did that happen
Oh
after
yeah.
the accident?
No,
Really?
actually, I've always been this weirdo. I'm like, I'm gonna change the world. I'm gonna do all this
Whoa.
stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
cool, but
Yeah.
how do you do it?
Mm,
But
yeah. That's really neat.
yeah, well,
That's
I
really neat,
mean,
Obs.
I'm thankful, but even like we were
Yeah.
talking before, I'm like,
Yeah.
sometimes I have too much, too many ideas. Try to quiet the
Yeah. Okay.
brain, but
Okay. Yeah. 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 We can kind of get lost sometimes,
correct.
right? The fascinating thing about the psychology of people that overcome such radical adversity, is again, I'll go back to just there's a lot in common. There are things that are powerful enough to get them up in the morning. There's something built in, that is enough, to get me to that next step.
Yes.
Sometimes it's the kids. Sometimes it's the kids that generate so much hope that, sometimes it's even I know somebody. Here's an interesting thing. I know somebody whose their legacy is a big part of their hope. And I'm like, well, what do you mean by legacy? And he said, I need to overcome my food issues because he's a food addict because I want to leave something behind for my kids. I want them to see this. I want them to know what that they can break through these huge issues, like they can get through them too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was enough hope. That was a big part of his hope to get him through. And for the last about 17 years,
Yeah.
he has been on he's been really healthy,
Yeah.
uh, and so that hope that he had, something that I can leave. Isn't that interesting? He wasn't even talking about leaving what we would sometimes think would be leaving a legacy of monetary kind of things, a
Correct. Yeah.
legacy, properties and things like that. He was like, no, I want to leave my kids a legacy that will get them through life with more hope.
Yeah.
Wow. What a thing. I would think that everybody in the chat who has kids probably wants their kids to be living in greater hope, living in greater joy,
Yes.
moving through life without so much turbulence, right? Moving forward with greater, success in every way.
Yes.
I don't think any
Yes.
child likes to see no parent likes to see their child hurting or in pain or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like, no.
Yep.
And I think that was his hope. Was he was saying, my hope is that I can leave that behind. If I do this, my kids will see it and they
Yeah.
will learn from it and they will
Yes.
grow from it. And so, different hope. That was his anchor of hope.
Yeah. Yep. Wow.
Sometimes anchors of hope is literal things like our health, or also like I think you were saying, maybe even I have this vision, and this vision generates a lot of hope. And then I will ask that person, well, how are you feeding that hope?
Yeah.
Here's another way to look at it. If you have hope, how are you being a good steward of growing that hope in your life? How are you doing that?
Yeah.
Because I know somebody who went to a conference this weekend to hear this great motivational speaker, and guess what? He left feeling super hopeful.
Yeah.
And he came back. He even texted me on the way back and going, dude, I am good, man. I've conquered this. I've got the answers. And I thought, okay, so you got a super zap from this great speaker.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do different? What are you gonna do different?
Yeah.
And he's like, I mean, I got it, Carlos. I just feel like, so I said, I lovingly said, I think you're full of crap right now, dude. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
I think you're
Yeah.
full of crap.
Yeah.
Because what you're feeling is based on emotions alone. You're
Yes.
not yet ready to sacrifice anything. How are you going to care for the hope that you have right now? How are you going to care for it?
Yeah.
And he couldn't answer that. He wasn't caring for the hope that he generated that weekend. He wasn't caring for it. He
Yeah.
was relying on the feelings and emotions to carry him. But I'm like, what happens when you go to the bottom of that spiral?
Yes.
What kind of hope are you going to have there?
Yeah.
Well, if he's going to be, and I challenged him, look, if you're going to be a good steward of this hope that you're experiencing, you're going to do something. You're going to take action. You're going to follow it up
Yes.
with something that is going to help grow that hope.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I wish hope was only based on feelings and emotions. That would be
Correct.
I
Yeah.
wish it was.
Get those
But
shots of hope. I'm like
yes,
dopamine. I'm like
totally.
not the same thing.
Yes. Oh
Gosh.
man, it's just not. So the action is such a big part of it. It's building hope in our life, living in hopefulness. Usually this is what you see. And we usually don't put these together, but when I see people living in increasing hope in their life, increasing hope, not just hope, but increasing hope throughout their
Yeah.
life, it's because they have enough streams of joy in their life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Streams of joy.
That's amazing.
So look at your life this week. How many streams of joy are you, uh, uh, are coming into your life this week?
Mm-hmm.
Streams of joy through, again, the things that we identified in the bucket of hope. Streams of joy,
Yeah.
is going to fill that up. And it's so hard to do that sometimes because I talked about this a while back, but the negativity bias, oh man, it can be so hard. But I'll tell moms this a lot early on when they have young kids. I'll tell them most of the time, I will tell them, you need to put more on your husband.
Yeah.
You need to put more on your partner. You need to put more on them to
Yeah.
help you so you can go
Yes.
go and practice some self-care. And usually they say to me, I can't do that. Why?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they come home from work and they're already tired. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Did you incubate this baby? Did you traumatically birth this baby?
Yep.
Did you feed this baby?
Yeah.
You know, did you get did you have to go through healing? Your body had to go through healing from that traumatic birth?
Yes.
So that's all you, not your partner.
Right.
And so I think you deserve some you time. So it's like
Correct.
I'm like I've actually told people you need to take I've had I mean time. I've had them do that with care, but I've had
Yeah.
them take that time that they've needed for themselves and they realized I didn't know that my partner could step up like this. Well,
Oh, yeah.
I can,
Give them the
you know.
opportunity, the space.
Yep. Yep,
So,
and so what they were doing was because a lot of this is postpartum, right? Sometimes
yeah.
that's the kind of depression that they might feel, so we need to incorporate those streams of joy,
Yeah.
and, I even know people who experience really hard relationships for years, and so guess what? They have 0 streams of joy.
Yeah.
None.
Wow.
Like, when was it I used to dance all the time. I used to go and dance salsa all the time. It brought me so much joy.
Yeah.
And they'll say things like, I can't remember the last time I had joy. It's like,
Yeah.
those streams have dried up.
Correct. Yeah.
And so you need to get those streams flowing again,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Get them
Really.
flowing.
Yeah. And it's going to take action, right? I can't just do it with feelings and emotions. So
Correct.
it's so wild how much identifying. Let me just give you an example of how easy it is, but I want to say easy, but it's also really challenging. And that is,
Yeah.
here's somebody, let's say, if I have somebody who's dealing with depression, really struggling with some fearful thinking, depressed thinking, anxious thinking, fearful, maybe it's the future that's really causing a lot of anxiety. And they're only thinking of, in their mind, all they can think of things that they can't do. I can't do that. I can't do that either. And I'll say, well, have you tried this? No, that won't work. They have an answer, right, for everything. It's
Oh,
all
yeah.
negative.
Yep.
They don't believe in themselves. And so I'll say, I want you to just sit down. I'll give them a pad and paper and I'll say, I just want you to write down as many positive things that you can about yourself.
Yeah.
And they will sit there, for minutes and not
Yeah.
write anything because they can't think of anything.
Wow. Yeah.
Their streams of joy, have been dried up.
Yeah.
And so eventually one thing comes. Well, my people love me. Wow. People love you. That's huge, man. I
That's
mean,
something.
wow. I mean, that's powerful. So I'll say, well, uh, I'll tell them to keep going, and
Yeah.
they'll start coming up with a few more,
Yeah.
and then they'll think about, I mean, I have come through a lot, really? Because they don't even see it. I'm like, yeah, you've come through a lot.
Yeah.
And so when they start connecting with the positive, that's what I'm trying to talk about. They
Yeah.
start feeling more hope when they connect with the reality that they are that they have grown or that things have changed, but they've lost sense of that reality because they've lived so much in that negativity, right? In that
Yes.
pain or depression. So we need to always be filling up our bucket, and those
Yes.
streams of joy. Oh, we
Definitely
need those
true.
streams of joy. Here's one of my streams of joy. My stream of joy is the coffee that I get with a friend of mine every week. That's one stream of
Yeah.
joy. I just love connecting with him and the kind of he's very supportive and encouraging. And so that's a stream of joy. My dog is a stream of joy for me.
Yeah.
Creating content is a stream of joy for me.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways. My work brings a stream of joy, but I mean, the things that music brings a stream of joy. When I'm feeling down, I swear to you, when I get in my car, if I'm intentional,
Yeah.
I will turn on my mid 80s playlist.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you, Obs.
Yeah.
Within 5 minutes, I'm feeling good.
Yep. Yep.
That's a stream of joy for me but I have to be intentional because when I get in the car after a really tough day, I don't want to turn on that playlist. I feel like I just want to isolate,
Oh yeah. Just go away and
right?
hide.
Yeah. And it's like, no, turn on that playlist. Do it,
Yeah.
and it just takes Rolling Stones, maybe even further back, go to the Rolling Stones, she's a rainbow. I listen, oh my gosh, it just all starts, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yes, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling more hopeful.
Yes.
And I start thinking of things I'm thankful for, thankful for. There's so many things to be thankful for. So this
Yes.
is what you see with people in like recovering addicts.
Yep.
This is what they build into their recovery.
Yep.
Gratitude lists. Every single morning they write out a gratitude list.
Yes.
You've probably done that,
Yep.
you know?
I do that every
You do.
day.
There you go. I mean, your podcast every morning, your
Yeah.
stream every morning has a lot to do with it's very hopeful. You're
Yeah.
reminding people, by the way. Yes, and by the way, I know Elaine is big on that. Oh
Yeah.
man, I love music therapy is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Brings so much healing to our brains. But I just know that your stream every morning is helping us connect with hope. That last thing, what do you say? What's that last thing you say?
Oh yeah.
What is it?
Well, I can. When I go then, you matter. Your
You
story
matter.
matters, and
Yeah.
you belong here.
Dude, come on.
Yep.
What?
So yep.
That is sick. I mean, in a
It's
good way,
well,
just
yeah.
awesome.
That's a thing because and I am learning just
Yeah.
as you say. Okay, what do
Yeah.
you need to do? Oh, I
Yeah.
need affirmation. So I'm putting it out too. Remind
Yep.
myself
Yep.
I matter.
Yeah.
My story matters. I
Yeah.
belong here.
Yeah.
And you do too.
And you do too. That's so good.
Yep.
That's so good. It's here's another thing to do. If you ever listen to you know, Obs in the morning. I'm here in LA, so sometimes when you go live, I
Yeah.
get the, you know, I get the reminder at 4 a.m. or something.
I
You know what
was
I
about
mean?
to say, yeah,
And
it's 4 a.m. your time.
and every once in a while, I'm already up. Every once in a while, I'm actually already up. So I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
going to say hi to Obs. But that last part, let me tell you what I've done with that last part. And I would encourage everybody, when you listen to Obs share that send off, I would encourage you to justify every single one of those affirmations. So what's the first one, Obs? It's what?
You matter.
So take that from Obs and justify it. Why do you matter?
Yeah.
Journal that out, like journal out why you matter. Because it's not enough that you matter.
Yeah.
You really do matter. And Obs is trying to help you understand, like, you really do. Yeah, I know I do.
Yes.
No. You really do. Like,
Yes.
you don't. So go back and journal out, like, why you matter, because you really do.
Yes. Yes.
And, people love you. You're loved. You're accepted. You matter because of what you bring into this world. You matter because of
Yes.
the knowledge you bring. You matter because of the personality that you bring. You matter because of the gifts that you bring. Your DNA. Who you were
Yes.
made to be. I mean, you bring so much. You bring encouragement. You're a friend. You bring being a son or daughter or mother or father or whomever, right? You matter.
Yes.
And oftentimes we need to justify why we matter. And then, like, what's your second one, Obs, that you say? You matter.
And your story matters.
Your story matters.
Yep.
Come on. I just
Yep.
love that. Yeah. And then it would be the same thing. Like, why does your story matter? And for you, Obs, like, your story matters for so many reasons. I'm one of them. I'm one of the reasons why your story matters is because um, it's had an effect on me.
Yeah.
And I mean that when I say it. I really do mean that. It's like your you're an inspiration to me. That's one reason why your story matters. I mean, it matters obviously for probably a lot of other reasons for you. I'm just
Yeah.
saying why it matters for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so thankful that you're sharing it, and then the last one is you belong here.
Correct.
And that's another one, like, because. So I would encourage everybody out there, get out your journal and write those down and justify them. Why are they true? And what you're doing when you're justifying them to yourself is they're going into the deeper, learning areas of your brain. You want this stuff to turn into long-term memory,
Yes.
right? And so and that's where, like, journaling can help do that, create long-term memory, consistent journaling. There are things that we can do, to take things to deeper places, in our
Yes.
memory. And that's one of them. Thanks for making that, though. Obs, thanks for putting that affirmation together and sharing that every day.
It is definitely something I enjoy. Well, I need. But
Yeah.
yes, that's
Yeah.
what I want my
Right.
message of
Right.
hope to be.
Yes. And and you are, like I said, so I mean, I hope that we, together, I mean, it's just such a weird thing is, we've never met,
Correct.
in person, and we've met through some groups. And I'm so grateful for some of these groups I've connected with. Thankfully, I
Yes.
have connected with some really safe groups. I have experienced some unsafe groups, by the way, but some of the groups that we're connected to and the people that we're connected to, these are safe people. And I'm so thankful for that, because I have felt that sense of belonging, even connecting with you. And isn't that interesting how this kind of spiritual connection, this, this something transcends,
Yes.
you know, uh, even though we've never met each other in a three-dimensional way,
Correct.
there is still this really neat connection, that is there. But you can still have that really deep and meaningful connection with two people.
Correct.
But
Yes.
I'll tell you why I think it's happened, why I feel safe with you, and that is because I have given you some of the weapons of my destruction, because I trust you. Some of the weapons of my destruction that I've given you has been in my vulnerability. I've shared with you some things about me. I've given some of that too, but that's because I trust you,
Yes.
because you've shared some stuff with me.
Yeah.
And so we have both done that a little bit with each other, and I'm so thankful for that. Really, I just don't think there's anything more valuable that we can experience in our life than deep and meaningful relationships in our life,
Yes.
with our children, with our friends, with our partners, with, you know what I mean? Just,
Yes.
there's just nothing more powerful, right? So
You are
I'm living
correct.
in a lot of hope today, increasing hope, and I want everybody to kind of connect with that
Yes.
word, that
Yes.
that that phrase, increasing hope. It's different.
Mm.
Increasing hope. It really does take consistent work, to experience increasing hope throughout our life. In fact, there have been a lot of interesting people to talk about that. Philosophers throughout history have talked about hope in that sense as well. It's
Yes.
because, yeah, we don't have to just live with the hope that I have today. I can actually live an increasing hope,
Yes.
and that's just gonna have a lot to do with, the effort that I'm putting into care for the hope that I have right now.
Yes.
How are we caring for the hope that we have right now? How are we doing that? So
Good. I'm like,
what else?
yes, you're.
Anything else, Obs? Because I can go on forever. So I gotta shut up. I gotta shut up and tell me what else. Anything else?
No, that is good. Like, I need to write that down. Hope. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
This hope.
So good.
So
So good.
thank you, yeah, so
Mm.
much for being here
Yeah.
with me, for
Yeah.
sharing this. It's
Mm.
fantastic. And I get to
I'm
rewatch
glad.
it.
I'm glad.
So,
I'm really glad we were able to do this, Obs,
yes.
and um Let's do it again. Yeah, you asked me
Yeah.
earlier. We'll do it again for
Yep.
sure. Let's do another hope-filled, you know, stream again.
Absolutely.
But even through this, I just want to say I hope some of you are feeling it, but I am feeling more hope than I was before we did this.
Yes.
That's not a
Fantastic.
coincidence. It's not a coincidence, right? There's a reason.
That's
All right,
real.
Obs.
So, hey, I will put it on here and say, hey, remember,
You got it.
through everything, you matter. Your
Yeah.
story matters.
Yeah.
You belong here.
That's right.
Thank you, Carlos, for joining
You got
us, for spreading this hope. And let's go ahead and just spread it around.
You got it. Agree.
Fantastic. Thank you all for showing up, and
See you, everybody.
have a fantastic day.